welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a really big question, one that I think everyone asks eventually. What actually happens when we die?
It's fundamental, isn't it? Life after death, rebirth, maybe even liberation.
Exactly. And we're going to explore these ideas, drawing on a fascinating discussion with Radhika Kapo Mataji. She has years of experience with ISK Khan and pulls from sources like the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Gurbani.
Right. Our mission today is to sort of unpack these concepts, the soul, this thing called the subtle body, reincarnation, make them clear, maybe even a bit surprising.
We'll look at what's believed to happen post-death, how our actions might, echo into the future.
And crucially, how one might achieve freedom from that cycle. The source material is from a YouTube transcript featuring Radhika Kapo Mataji.
So if you've ever wondered, is this it, or what decides what comes next?
Yeah.
Well, you're in the right place.
Yeah, these are ancient questions, but we're hoping to offer a perspective rooted in that wisdom, maybe give you a fresh angle.
Okay, let's jump into a core idea right away. This notion that we're more than just, flesh and bone. There's this concept of a subtle body. And it's not like a ghost exactly. It's described as made of mind, intelligence, and something called the false ego.
Right, and the soul itself is said to be inside this subtle body, kind of enveloped by it.
And the goal from this perspective is actually to free the soul from this subtle layer. That's a key aim.
So think of it like having two bodies almost. There's the gross one, the physical, made of earth, air, fire, water, ether, the elements we know.
Okay.
But then there's this inner one, the subtle body, mind, intelligence, false ego. And the soul, super tiny but powerful, is in the heart, but it's currently sort of bound up with this subtle mechanism.
So when the physical body dies, what happens then?
Well, according to this view, reincarnation isn't just a maybe, it's pretty much inevitable. That subtle body carrying all our desires and the imprints of our actions, they call them sanskaras.
Sanskaras.
Right, moves on, transmigrates to a new physical body.
That really makes you think, doesn't it? Like, why kids from the same parents can have such different personalities?
Exactly. Maybe these sanskaras, these imprints from past lives, are playing a role in those inherent traits.
So how do these sanskaras actually work?
Well, the idea is that every action, even thoughts, leaves an impression, a kind of residue, on the subtle body. They build up.
They accumulate.
Yeah, they accumulate and shape our svabhav, our basic nature. And it's this whole package of desires and impressions that the subtle body carries into the next life. It's like a subtle internal record.
It's interesting, the source mentions how we celebrate birthdays. But from this angle, each birthday is just marking another year closer to death. It suggests people often live in a kind of confusion, avoiding the fact that death is, the ultimate truth of this material existence.
And the bigger goal isn't just about getting a slightly better life next time around. It's about moksha liberation.
Breaking the cycle entirely.
Right. Escaping the whole birth-death cycle and reaching the spiritual realm, Bhagavatam. And achieving that requires the death of the subtle body.
Not the physical body's death, but the subtle body's.
Exactly. Transcending the pull of the mind, the intelligence as it's usually focused, and especially the ego.
Ah, the ego, that seems key. The sense of I and mine.
It's presented as the fuel for the subtle body. The idea is you can't reach liberation if you're puffed up with this ego, especially since the soul itself is described as infinitesimally small.
So how do you diminish it? How do you achieve this death of the subtle body?
Through devotion, bhakti is the path suggested. And not just reading scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita, but actually applying the teachings in daily life.
Right, knowing it isn't enough.
Precisely. There's that analogy of the parrot, It can perfectly say, beware of the hunter, but it still gets caught because it doesn't understand or apply the warning.
So just intellectual knowledge is useless without practice.
And similarly, chanting Ram Nam Satya after someone's gone, well, it's seen as kind of futile if that person didn't embrace spiritual wisdom while they were alive. It has to be lived.
Gurbani has that powerful line. Kruku yuso steinro I said on dem day, first accept death. Then let go of the desire for material life.
And that doesn't mean just sitting around doing nothing.
No, it's about detachment, right?
Yeah.
Detaching from that constant chase for temporary pleasures.
Yes, and cultivating contentment and this deep humility, being like the dust of everyone's feet.
Humbler than a blade of grass, offering respect without needing it back. That's a high standard.
It is. And it ties into balancing duty and detachment. Krishna talks about this in the Gita. We have responsibilities.
Do your duty, but don't be attached to the results.
Exactly. Do it ethically, keep the divine at the center. Guru Nanak Dev Ji farming at Kartarpur is given as an example of honest, detached living.
And the story of Valmiki, reminding us that we alone bear our karmic consequences. No one shares the burden of our unethical actions.
A sobering thought.
So if the goal is freeing the soul by, metaphorically, killing the subtle body, what's the practical method?
The main tool highlighted is controlling the mind. And the way to do that, chanting the Lord's names, mantra japa. The Hare Krishna Mahamantra is specifically mentioned as being especially effective for liberation in this current age, Kali Yuga. Krishna, known as Mukunda, is the one who gives liberation.
Now, what about deities? Can they grant this liberation?
It's an interesting point in the discussion. While deities are seen as empowered by the Lord, the ultimate power to grant liberation is said to rest with a genuine spiritual teacher, a guru.
Someone in a lineage, a guru parampara.
Yes. Gurbani even states, Hush and washa, there's no deity like the guru. So choosing a guru wisely is stressed.
Based on qualities, not just popularity, like controlling the senses of Goswami.
Precisely. And the Gita reinforces that identity, like being a Brahmin, comes from qualities and actions, not just birth. Vaishnavas, devotees of Vishnu, are seen as spiritually very elevated.
And a real sign of a true guru-disciple relationship is that they chant and inspire others to chant too.
And this chanting isn't just for liberation, it's also seen as protection.
Protection from death.
Oh.
How so?
Gurbani says, an ikila uke. Chanting Hari's names means Yamaraj, the Lord of Death, doesn't touch you.
So, at death, it's different for devotees.
That's the idea. Either Vishnu's messengers come or Yamaraj's messengers, the Yamadutas. If you've lived a sinful life, a pappy life, without remembering God, the Yamadutas come and their suffering may be a temporary hellish experience.
But for devotees.
They're escorted by Vishnu's messengers directly to the spiritual world.
Okay, so Krishna says in the Gita, all worship ultimately comes to him. But what about worshiping other deities for, say, material stuff?
That's seen as, well, a bit flawed, driven by selfish desires, seeking temporary benefits, rather than pure devotion to the Supreme.
Even though someone like Shiva is a great devotee of Vishnu himself.
Yes. The teaching is that only devotion to Vishnu leads to ultimate liberation. And Shiva actually guides sincere seekers towards Krishna consciousness. It's about the ultimate goal.
The Gita also mentions 4 kinds of pious people who approach God.
It does. The distressed, the one seeking knowledge, the one wanting wealth, and the curious or inquisitive.
And which one is considered the best?
The one who engages in pure devotion based on knowledge and actually lives it. That person is said to be most dear to the Lord.
It really emphasizes the Gita as a science you have to apply, not just read.
Exactly, practical application.
But understanding these texts, Bhagavad Gita, spoken by Krishna, written by Vyasa, how does one get the right understanding?
The capacity to understand is seen as divinely granted. And while many commentaries exist, Srila Prabhupada, ISK Con's founder, is presented as being specifically empowered by his guru to spread this knowledge worldwide.
That lineage again, the disciplic succession, like electricity needing a connection.
Right. His commentary on the Gita is highlighted as being clear, accessible, and strengthening faith by drawing from various scriptures. And his own story, persevering through hardship to fulfill his guru's instruction, is quite powerful.
So let's circle back to the soul's journey after death. What's the deciding factor?
Consciousness. Your state of mind at the moment of death is crucial. It determines the next destination.
There are stories illustrating this.
Yes, like Jataparada, whose attachment even to a deer affected his next birth. But then there's Ajamila.
Ah, Ajamila. He lived a pretty sinful life, didn't he?
He did, but at the very end he called out Narayana.
Which was his son's name, but also God's name.
Exactly, and just that utterance, even unintentionally calling the Lord's name, saved him. The messengers of Vishnu intervened, and realizing what happened, he then dedicated the rest of his life to devotion and attained liberation. It shows the power of the name.
Wow, it really underscores this idea of human birth being precious, a chance for spiritual progress.
A huge chance, but there's no guarantee you get another human birth if you waste this one on, well, karma, bad actions, and neglect spiritual life.
You could end up in lower life forms.
Depending on your consciousness, yes. The only ones seemingly assured of another human birth are those who die while actively engaged in devotion. They pick up where they left off.
And real liberation, Mukti, isn't just about the next life. It's about achieving it now while living.
Yeah.
By getting free from that subtle body.
Yes, becoming liberated while living.
The source also mentioned how strong attachments can lead to specific kinds of rebirths.
Like attachment to the physical body potentially leading to birth as a snake, or strong lingering desires turning one into a ghost, or even very specific attachments like between spouses leading to rebirths aimed at fulfilling those lingering bonds.
Which is why chanting the Lord's name around someone who is dying is encouraged.
Yeah.
To help them detach.
Exactly, to help elevate their consciousness at that critical moment.
And finally, what about enlightened souls? Why are they born here?
They aren't born for their own liberation, they've already achieved that. They come to help us.
Like gurus, spiritual teachers.
Yes, they're seen as embodiments of divine qualities, almost like manifestations of the divine itself, and they often endure incredible hardships.
Like Guru Arjan Dev Ji or Srila Prabhupada.
Precisely, making huge sacrifices out of compassion just to share the spiritual wisdom and guide humanity.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, there were some really powerful takeaways here.
Definitely. That distinction between the physical and the subtle body, for one, and how our actions, our sanskaras, really do seem to shape our journey.
And the emphasis on spiritual practice, especially chanting the Lord's names, as the way to liberation.
And the crucial role of a genuine guru in that process. It's presented as pretty indispensable.
So here's something for you, the listener, to ponder. Think about that subtle body-mind, intelligence, ego. How might really understanding its influence change your focus, your priorities day to day?
It's a deep question, and honestly, we've only scratched the surface today. We really encourage you, if this sparked something, to explore the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the teachings of these spiritual guides for yourself. What part of this really hit home for you? What are you still curious about?
And as a final thought, maybe consider that path towards becoming Jivan Mukta, liberated while still living, working on detachment from ego, from those material ties, and cultivating devotion.
Because according to the wisdom we've explored today, that really is the path to true freedom and ultimately fulfillment.